All right, so I'm supposed to keep you awake now that lunch is over. So hopefully I can do a good job of that. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I really appreciate not being in the Philadelphia airport, which I spent a lot more time in yesterday than I ever intended to. So much of having been beautiful Montreal and here at McGill. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about engaging the university community. And so one of the things, though, is it's interesting, my career, I've worked most of my career in special collections and archives, but for the last 3 years, I've actually been a dean of a library, one of a top 30 university in the U.S., and very pleased to be in that. And one of the things I think that helps special collections folks and sort of helps folks like myself be distinctive when we're looking at those kind of positions is because as special collections and archives folks, you do work with the broader university community, and that's one of the things I think that really kind of distinguished me as I was looking at dean-level jobs. So it's not only a good thing to do for your special collections, it's a great career move. So just keep that in mind as we're talking about this today. So, yeah, that's me. Oh, and there we are. And, okay, so thank goodness that Don Waters does not charge me a fee every time I use this quote, because I think I've used this quote in more talks than any talk of it. But it's interesting. I was looking at it when I was writing it, because I hadn't used it actually for a while to talk about that. It's like 2005 that he said this. But it's still incredibly relevant about how the special collections are really what makes libraries distinct. Because I can compare my library, Wake Forest, with McGill. I bet you we have so many databases and different kind of things in general collections that just totally overlap. But what's going to be really different is my special collections are going to be very different than your special collections. So it is really the unique thing that makes us distinct. And why is that important with university engagement? Because as we're talking about the library and talking about special collections with those outside of the library, getting them interested in the fact that this is what makes McGill distinctive. Because what you have here, no one else in Canada or North America and sometimes the world has what you have. So that's a really big thing to keep in mind. It sort of is a real kind of great prestige thing, not just for this library, but for this university. And so I think that's really one of the great ways in sort of starting to engage your campus. So one of the things, I'm a big planning nut. In fact, I'm getting ready to do a strategic plan in Wake Forest for the library. So of course I go and look to see if you have a strategic plan, because this is one of the things I do. And I was really, really happy to see this. I love this preserve and share unique treasures of the world. So I already felt like you've got to get that Don Waters quote in your DNA here. And particularly, I saw a lot of things in that plan that kind of really resonated with sort of the communications plan, the public events. Community partnerships. I mean, there's a lot of things that already are feeding into that desire for community engagement.
By the way, that top one can be orange after you visit.
Oh, there you go. All right. So one of the things I think is a great way to engage, and this again really feeds off of what Lance and Lisa said before lunch, is creative uses of collections. Because most of our special collections were built to sort of support that traditional use, having people come to our reading rooms and sit down and doing serious scholarly research. But if we don't engage them somehow and get them interested in our special collections, they're not going to come in and use the collections. And so I was really happy. I went to your website and I saw one of my favorite kind of examples that really is kind of a low threshold. I'm all about the fun too in libraries and archives. And so I love the idea of using our special collections to create coloring books. There's been this whole renaissance in adult coloring books. It is a great kind of threshold to sort of demystify, and as Tom was talking about earlier this morning, it's taking the sort of intimidation factor out of special collections for our students, and sometimes our faculty as well. I've also seen people who do puzzles and lapel buttons, wall calendars. It's a great way to sort of start marketing and fitting checking off that communication box, but also really engaging your university. The other thing, actually I'm just going to be repeating what everybody said this morning. The other thing is I think this is a great way of engaging our faculty and the greater campus community is also through digital scholarship projects. This is one that we did at Wake Forest where we got a donor donated her great uncle's World War I journal. And what's different about this was actually the donor wanted to do a digital scholarship project and worked with our digital scholarship team to make an interactive map and transcription to go with the digital images of this diary that really put a lot of extra context and interest in it. And it turns out one of our faculty was teaching about World War I, and also this goes from an item that people might have found in our catalog to one that's now featured in several courses. So another great way. And another way of sort of engaging your campus and your university is through things like Wikipedia edit-thons. I know people have mixed feelings about Wikipedia, but they're going to use it, so why not be there? So when I was at Duke, one of the things is our whole workflow when we did a finding aid is the last thing you did is you checked if you were doing the personal papers of someone, you checked the Wikipedia article entry that, see if there was one. If there wasn't one, you wrote up one from the biographical note that you did. And then you made sure you embedded the link for the finding aid in that Wikipedia article so that they're going to not only get good source, they're going to have something that directed back. And very quickly, we found that we're getting more hits for archival collections from Wikipedia than we were from our own Google search site for the finding aids. So they're going to use it, so why not be there? It's also something that really is, we did at Wake, we've done one of these Wikipedia edit-cons. This is one that the University of North Carolina has done, and it's a great way also to engage your students, perhaps working with, enhancing access to your special collections through, in this case, it was writing up biographical notes of folks we had papers for that we did at Wake. And here for Wake at UNC, they were doing it for some of the North Carolina authors whose collections they have. Again, a great way to put your content there where people are looking. And I know I'm stepping on the toes of the next section coming up, but I sort of feel like community, you can't talk about engaging the university community without talking about community engagement in general. And so again, sort of looking at your website, I found another one where I really thought this was great. You did a blog about your Zoological Society of Montreal papers. So again, I think that's another great way sort of bringing the sort of the town gown kind of relationship together. Again, looking at University of North Carolina, they've done a great project with community archiving. They've got actually they have a community archivist who's actually part of their special collections staff. And they've also now done this archivist in a backpack where they have oral history materials, archival supplies, and will go to different organizations and help them understand how to preserve their papers. And this, again, we talked about non-custodial. Here again, you're working with an organization that may never put their papers at the university or their records like that, but you're helping them preserve them. And in some cases, you may be doing some shared digitization or shared oral history, bringing things back as well. And we've had our own sort of project like that at Wake Forest, where a history professor, our head of special collections, worked with the oldest Catholic African-American church in town that had a tremendous archive, ran their own school, and they were coming up, I think it was on their 75th anniversary a couple of years ago. Again, they did not want to give up custody for their collection, but they did want to preserve it, so we now have sort of a joint collection with them where we hit scan that help them do their oral histories so they can have accessible piece here, so that if someone comes in, they can actually refer them over to us, but we didn't take the original materials away from them, but they're now stored and preserved. So again, a great town gown thing that really helps broaden the archival record. So, I spent a good portion of my career as a university archivist, and so one of the things I'm going to focus a little bit on the opportunity that institutional records actually have for campus engagement, because a lot of times they sort of look like this is stuff we just have to do because administratively it's important, but there's just a lot of other ways that you can actually use your institutional records to engage folks. So, so one of the things is like anniversaries. That's one of the first things you look at, like what are the big things coming up, and are there ways that we can do exhibits and programs. So in the States, Martin Luther King Jr. went around to almost every university, it seems like, trying out different speeches. And while there's a lot of different intellectual control, we actually have this recording the speech there because of the rights the King family holds. We can only put like a little snippet up. But what we can do is go and interview people, students who were actually who heard the talk. And so we helped do that for an anniversary of MLK Day. The other thing is alumni engagement. Institutional records are like so important for alumni. And so one of my favorite things we do, and Bill will laugh at this, and Tom as well, because I think we have shared a lot of beers together. We have my favorite things. This is not my idea. We call it Hop into History. And if you did do my readings, I did. It was actually started by a colleague at UNCG, and sort of copying is sort of this serious form of flattery. So we totally copied what she did and did our own version of Hop into History. And we will do pop-up exhibits at local breweries and invite alumni. And it's been tremendously successful and also very very tasty as well. In fact, the history department likes it so much is that we have a small one we do monthly during the academic year, and then we do one or two big ones that we invite all the local alumni. The history department has now made that the happy hour night that they come to the brewery wherever we are. So it's really kind of a great way. So we build the constituency there. There's also various ways of administrative support. I think that I did a case study that the University of Kansas had done about archive supporting fundraising. In this case, it was working with their Alumni Association and Advancement to sort of have pop-up exhibits when they were doing sort of fundraising things and like that. So again, another way that really the campus, you can really get engaged with the campus. There's also historical tours. You got a great campus like this. The archives is full of images throughout time. And our friends at North Carolina State University did basically a tour in your pocket using archival things and having historical images, so when you did a walking tour, you could see what these buildings looked like before, which is a sort of a great way of being able to, again, leverage that great historical content. And then one of my former employers has done an incredibly creative program to highlight student research, because students love to get paid to do research, and so they actually have they've done a summer stipend where undergraduates come. They usually do 6 to 8, and they actually research underdocumented themes and sort of try to help expand the history of the university through the research in the archives, and then also in some cases have found that more documentation to answer things. So one of the things I know they're doing now is looking at the labor. They're researching all the people who helped build the campus there in Durham. So it's one of the summer projects. They also did a thing of the earliest African-American histories of the earliest African-American students who came to Duke University. So it's been really an interesting project. And so they started it, they've had it 2 years, and they started doing the 3rd year this summer. But again, a great having this immersive experience in the archives. And so, so finally, just sort of talking about archives as a source of, and this could be more than, there we go, archives as evidence. So this is something that I've been involved with quite a bit, but again, it is another way that institutional records can really support the mission of the university and really get the attention. It's supporting administrative actions. If you've been collecting, you have the records of your boards of trustees or whatever your governing group is. And I know frequently when I was at Duke, the board of trustees, the secretary for the board, would be contacting the archives for getting background material before that. I even once had the president of the university call me up before a speech that was wanted a historical talking point from the archives. But frequently you have that kind of great direct tie with your administration, which is really terrific and was seen as a resource. You can also be a key resource in times of scandals and controversy. This is something that I have experienced. I could do a whole separate session on dealing with the Sandusky scandal at Penn State. But it also, besides having that kind of support for that kind of investigation piece, it also becomes a great documentation thing, so that you're documenting the history of the university going forward. We did a lot of web capture, tweet capture, and other ways of trying to document the scandal as it unfolded there. You can support the broader historical initiatives, institutional initiatives on campus. At Wake Forest, we worked with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion to create a timeline of diversity on campus. It's a great way that you can help campuses fulfill their missions. And I will wrap up with the one we'll talk a little bit mostly about something that I've become involved with personally with institutional records, is that it's been key to the work to understand race in the university. Where Wake Forest is part of the University Studying Slavery Consortium. There are actually a few of the Canadian institutions, and Dalhousie has joined that too, sort of their group. And it's really been interesting. It was started by mostly historians, but has quickly become a lot of librarians and archivists involved because we have the records that sort of show the documentation. And it's really helping unfold the histories of our institutions and help us understand better about how we got to where we are, sometimes in very kind of painful ways, and how we need to really recognize and reflect those who helped advance the university, sometimes through no choice of their own. So again, another sort of powerful way archives can support the mission to engage university communities. So sort of summarizing this, sort of engaging the university means sort of thinking really, I think, beyond the sort of traditional means of sort of just gathering the records and hoping someone will use them. You could be a great campus partner. I certainly work with administrative offices, the news folks, the Alumni Association Advancement. The administrative records really can support student work too. Sometimes people feel like they use to collect these administrative records and they're not really something that's useful for instruction and research. And as a lot of these things have evidence, those have a great broad engagement as well. So I'll wrap it up there. It looks like I'm like right on time. So thank you very much.